Hi, this is Carla King with the Author Friendly Podcast, a consumer's guide for self-publishers in audio format.
We know what the problems with the other major crowdfunding sites are for funding books. So we let the authors set a maximum and a minimum goal. So your maximum is $10,000, say you set a minimum of $5,000. If you raise $5,000, you'll be able to put out something credible. It won't be as fully professional as the $10,000 version, but it'll be, okay. But doesn't actually collect any money from anyone until you've hit the $5,000 goal.
Today we're talking with Greg Ioannou, the founder of PubLaunch. This is an online platform that you're going to want to consider for finding experts to help build your publishing team to crowdfund your book. Or if you are a supplier, an editor, or a marketer, or a designer, or a social media consultant, for you to register to become a supplier to help authors who need you. PubLaunch launched their books-only crowdfunding platform in June and are rolling out other features of the site as 2018 goes by. Greg Ioannou is the CEO and founder of PubLaunch, and he's been a book editor since 1977. He's edited somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 books and edited all kinds of other things, ranging from a Wii game to copy editing for Burger King promo items. Since 1985, he's been the president of Colborne Communications, which is a writing and editing company. And he's also president of Ioannou Books, a hybrid publishing company in Toronto. And we'll hear about that and talk about hybrid a bit too. He's served 4 terms as president of the Editors Canada, which he helped to found in the late 70s, and PubLaunch was his idea. Like so many of the other founders I interview on the Author Friendly podcast, Greg founded PubLaunch because he needed PubLaunch. So I'll stop talking and let him tell you why and why you need PubLaunch too. Welcome, Greg.
Hi.
So I'd like to start with this question about PubLaunch. How was it founded? What problem did it solve? And could you give us a brief history behind it?
Sure. It is being founded to solve a problem that I'm having. Ioannou Books is a hybrid publisher, which means that we don't publish the book until we can at least see how it's going to break even. Sometimes that means the author pays for it. Sometimes it means we crowdfund. Sometimes they're advanced sales. In the early days of Ioannou, we were basically getting the authors to pay for the publication costs. And we'd have writers come in, and they were all optimistic and starry-eyed, thinking they were going to sell hundreds of thousands of copies of their books. They'd pay the fee, and sometimes they would get, 22 sales. And I had real problems with that, with the notion it felt like we were misleading the writers. You don't really know going into it how well or badly the book is going to sell, but you don't want to, start the conversation by, you're probably going to sell 20 copies. And there was one particular book where the costs were over $15,000 and it literally sold 22 copies. And I felt terrible. I wasn't really in a situation where I could give the money back, but I really wanted to. Around that time, an author came to us who had crowdfunded his book. And he walks in the door with $16,000 to spend and a whole pile of advance sales. And it sort of opened my eyes. This was late 2012. And we started using crowdfunding as our model. We baked it into the process. So rather than asking the authors for the money, we would ask them to crowdfund the book. And it makes it, to me, sort of ethically clean. If it crowdfunds successfully, they've covered their costs, they've pre-sold some copies, you're paying for the book by actually selling books. If it crowdfunds unsuccessfully, we go into the process knowing that it's not going to sell very well. So either the author goes away and rethinks, or it then becomes, they choose to pay for it for whatever reason, but they're not really expecting it to be a major bestseller. At that point, it's almost a vanity project, and my conscience is clear. We were crowdfunding our books. Most of them succeeded, and it just became the model of how we were doing it. We were using a New York company, PubLaunch, And we're getting used to a nice fat check from PubSlush every month. And they went out of business August 2015. And we looked around, and there really are no other crowdfunding sites that are really specifically designed for books. So we decided to build one. And the thinking was, okay, if we're going to be going to the trouble of creating a crowdfunding site, there's so much more we could be doing at the same time. And that's where the other ideas came in. We decided to do something a whole lot more ambitious than just another crowdfunding site. So we added on the marketplace where authors could buy the services of trusted professionals, editors, designers, marketing people, and so on. Once they have a project going, there's a launch room where the professionals and the author can exchange files, talk to each other, just where the process can happen.
Right. It's very complete flow. And I'd like to get into that a little bit later. But before we go on, is there like an ideal author that is attracted to PubLaunch?
The ideal author has thought through who the audience for the book is and written a book for that audience, has some idea of how to connect to that audience, has had some notion of how to market the book all the way through the process of writing it.
Mm-hmm. So they've done their market research. They maybe have a platform. They're ready to go. Right.
So often you get a writer come in, oh, I've written a novel.
Right.
Great. What kind of novel? A fiction novel. And it's totally news to them that there are genres and specific readerships looking for specific kinds of books and so on. Or they've written a memoir, and the potential audience for the memoir is maybe 2 people if they're lucky. They haven't connected with any community, whatever. They haven't even really connected with their family, at least in terms of writing the book. So that's the opposite of an ideal author. The ideal author really has a firm idea of who the book is written for.
But if you have an author who's done a memoir, perhaps just for family or community, they don't need to crowdfund. They can pay out of their own pocket.
Yeah, the cost is relatively trivial. We'll give you the resources for how to do that, as in, links to printers and so on. That part's not on the site yet, but it's in our future plans. And if all we're doing for you is saying, here's people you can trust, fine. We're not going to take your money or anything. We're just making the connection. Some projects don't need crowdfunding. They don't need editing or anything, any design beyond what you can do yourself in Word.
True. So how do you vet these editors? Let's talk about your marketplace a little bit.
We talked about that a lot at first. The problem is that I know a lot of editors. I've been president of the Editors Association for years, and we didn't want it to be or to be perceived as Greg and his cronies.
Mm-hmm.
So we contacted an outside editorial testing company, and they developed 2 tests for us. One for substantive and stylistic editing, the sort of big picture stuff, and one for copy editing, the small detail-y stuff. We have each editor who approaches us take the tests, or one test if they only do one kind of editing. We anonymize it. We strip their name out of the Word file and just give them an applicant number. Send the test to the other company. A few weeks later, they send us the test results. We then look to see who that was, and so on. So it's totally arm's length. And the results have been fairly surprising. For one thing, 3 of my friends have failed, which I hear about a lot.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Some fairly experienced editors have done fairly spectacularly badly, and some almost beginners have scored spectacularly high scores. It does seem to be sorting based on ability very effectively. It's based on Editors Canada's standards for editors. There are 4 different standards. This is what a stylistic editor should know. This is what a copy editor should know, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something in each test that's testing each one of those standards. So it's being pretty thorough. And the result we get back from the testing company tells us where the editors have succeeded and where they have failed.
So they get listed in your list of editors that are on your site, as well as indexers, book interior designers, cover designers. I'm reading off the PubLaunch.com
right.
site, and marketers and publicists. Do you have tests for all of those suppliers
No.
as well?
We have tests for editors. We have tests for designers.
Mm-hmm.
we're trusting the Indexers Association as a way of screening to see if indexers know what they're doing. There aren't that many indexers anyway. And we're still thinking through some of the marketing stuff. The marketers aren't going to be on the site when it initially launches, because marketing is really complex and it's really hard to tell how effective people are.
Yeah, it is. And there's so many different kinds: social media marketing, PR people,
There
people.
are literally 24 kinds.
Yeah.
And we're working through how to make it user-friendly so it's not a daunting, here are 24 different kinds of marketing, check off the ones you want. And also, we want people to get value for money. We're not going to put a marketer on the site unless we think there's a good chance that the marketer is going to be effective. So we're still thinking that bit through. We've got some of the programming done, but we haven't done some of the organizational stuff in behind.
I think that's a common problem for everybody in the industry, is trying to find good marketing people that really target the needs of the author, who may just need a little bit of coaching and hand-holding at the beginning, or a full-fledged, media tour, worldwide.
Yeah, exactly. The media tour worldwide and the full-fledged stuff is surprisingly easy to provide, because that's where the money is. That's where the experienced marketers have congregated. It's at the lower end where it's getting someone known initially, some of the social media stuff. That's where it's difficult to sort out the effective people from the less effective people, from the complete pretenders.
So that's interesting. So an author starts with you. Do they have to pay any money up front to explore PubLaunch and your service?
No, it's totally free until. So you come to the site, say you're using the marketplace, you go through, you select the services you're interested in, and for each service we suggest a range of qualified suppliers. You pick the supplier you're interested in going with. They're then sent an email saying, here's the book, here's the fee you would get, are you available? If they say yes, you're then paired up. At that point, the author is presented with a choice of either pay this amount or crowdfund. Our expectation is the bulk of them will crowdfund, but we don't know yet.
Cool. So how do you make money if you don't charge the authors?
We charge the suppliers.
Aha.
So if the supplier is getting $1,000, we keep 10% of that.
Oh, that's fair.
And the other place we make money is the standard 5% commission on crowdfunding.
On crowdfunding. Okay, good. So that's kind of like Kickstarter and all that.
They all charge about the same. Some of the sites have different percentages for different scenarios. I believe GoFundMe charges 9% if you don't reach your target, and a lower amount if you do. We're just 5% across the board.
So so say you start building your book, you can choose your own team, or you can choose a coach to guide you through it.
Yep.
That's kind of nice. How many people do that? I mean, do most people just want to choose a editor or an illustrator, or do they want somebody to handhold them through the whole process?
We don't know yet. We haven't turned that part of the site on. In real life, outside of PubLaunch, about 3/4 of them have the manuscript to the point where it's ready for an editor. And PubLaunch is really designed mostly for people who have at least done a first draft. If you're thinking it through, eventually we're going to add ghostwriters and services like that on, but at the moment it's, assuming you're ready either for some coaching or for editing.
I always look around for competition. You guys are pretty different. There are other marketplaces and other crowdfunding platforms. What makes you different?
A number of things. One is really genuinely screening the suppliers. We're going for the real pros. We're also built on 40 years of publishing experience. So we don't need the editors and designers and so on to estimate on each project how long it's going to take. We've got data from thousands of books that tell us how long it's likely to take. So the estimating is automatic. It's usually astonishingly accurate. We had one $18,000 project at one of my other companies a couple of years ago where it was within 10 minutes of the actual log time.
Oh my gosh. Well, I guess after you've edited 3,000 books, Greg, you should probably know how long it takes.
Right. A lot of the other companies are programmers and web people getting into publishing. We're coming the other way. We're publishing people who know the process, know how long it takes to do things, what it costs, and so on. and we're getting people to program that for us. We've got a lot of expertise that the other companies don't have. The other thing is we're weeding out the beginners. We're weeding out the pretenders. They really are genuine publishing professionals who know exactly what they're doing.
That's so hard for authors to do on their own, especially when you're starting out. You have no idea where to turn.
The other thing, we've been playing with crowdfunding for about 5 years, and we know what the problems with the other major crowdfunding sites are for funding books. For a round number, say your book is going to cost $10,000. You go to one of the other sites and you try and raise $10,000. On Kickstarter, if you go for $10,000 and raise $9,500, you don't get a penny. It's all or nothing.
Right.
For $9,500, you could have used a slightly cheaper cover illustrator or something. There's a corner you could have cut and got the book out. At the other extreme, Indiegogo gives you what you raise. So you're trying to get $10,000, you raise $150, you find yourself with $150 in your pocket and a commitment to ship off 10 books, which are going to cost you way more than $150.
Mm-hmm.
So we let the authors set a maximum and a minimum goal. So your maximum is $10,000, say you set a minimum of $5,000. If you raise $5,000, you'll be able to put out something credible. It won't be as fully professional as the $10,000 version, but it'll be, okay. So it doesn't actually collect any money from anyone until you've hit the $5,000. There's a minimum threshold and a maximum goal.
That's nice. Yeah, so at least you can get your book done, but with slightly lower cost.
You use a cheaper editor or whatever, but you're not leaving a lot of money on the table if you come close to your goal, and you're not left with a commitment to provide books or something if you raise very little money. It lets you set a range. The other thing that's really different from the other crowdfunding sites is our instructions that are intended for people working on books. The whole description of the process is aimed at writers. The whole description of how the crowdfunding works, the way the marketplace works, it explains the book publishing process in a lot of detail, which the other sites just don't have the expertise to do.
Right. So do you give any authors any other help on how to crowdfund? Or
at the moment, if you go to our learning center, you'll see a whole lot of explanations of how things work, and there's a webinar on how to crowdfund. For the next little while, we're offering a deal to 25 writers, the next 25 writers who ask for it, where we will give them personalized coaching. Our goal is to get people to the point where they really understand how to do it. Ioannou's crowdfunding campaigns almost all succeeded, and it's because we didn't launch one until we knew the author was ready. And we're trying to get authors to that point themselves just by giving them the advice and the tools they need. So you don't have them starting before they've done the prep work, getting lists of people to contact and really thinking through what incentives and having the description of the book really polished and so on.
yeah, boy, I've had a few author friends crowdfund, and it's it's fun, but it's a lot of work. Requires a lot of attention to your social media platforms.
It means pulling together a mailing list, sending emails to the people you think are likely to contribute, tracking who does and doing follow-ups, and knowing when to launch it. Successful campaigns usually bring in significant money on their first day. So you want to line up those early contributors so that it launches with a bang. It starts with 15 or 25%, so it's already among the leading crowdfunding campaigns.
Right. That first day is so important. And then the last days as well.
Yeah, most of the money comes in the first 3 or 4 days and the last couple of days.
Right.
It trickles in between, but the opening is really key. And fairly often, after the first day that it's going to fail. If they've raised $60 on the first day, this thing's not going to fly.
Oh, boy. Yeah, the pressure. The pressure.
Right. So you should know where those early contributions are likely to come from.
Right. Get them set up in advance.
Exactly.
Good. Okay. Well, great. That all sounds awesome. And I just want to close by getting a list of where we can find you on the web and at the socials. I know you're at PubLaunch.com. Where else are you active?
We're on Facebook. Just search for PubLaunch. We are on LinkedIn. Those are the two main ones. We're about to start getting more active on Twitter. The publishing community is sort of either on Facebook or on Twitter, and we're from the Facebook side of the divide, but we just added a Twitter person to our team. So we're finally
great.
starting conversations on Twitter.
Yeah, I kind of dropped Twitter myself. I used to like it, and I'm on Facebook now again. And I know you have a blog you can subscribe to.
Right, there's a blog on the website. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, and you can subscribe to either the writer newsletter or the supplier newsletter. So if you're an editor or a designer or a marketer, you've got your own newsletter. And then just the last piece of information I'd love to hear from you. Can you leave us with a single most important piece of advice or food for thought for our author audience?
Aim for a specific group of readers. In writing, in marketing, everything. You're writing to entertain or inform a definable group of people. If you don't have an audience in mind, it's not going to be focused enough.
Wow, that's excellent advice, Greg. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
I appreciate your time.
Likewise.
Okay.
Be well.
So that's it for now. I hope you'll listen in on the next episode of the Author Friendly Podcast. You can find the show notes at www.authorfriendly.com, and you'll also find links to places you can find me on the socials. Also, free resources like my Consumer's Guide for Self-Publishers with reviews of all the tools, services, and products you'll hear about on this podcast. And hey, if you like the podcast, I'd appreciate a quick or a detailed review on iTunes or Stitcher. It helps a lot to float the podcast to the top so more authors can find it. All that and more on authorfriendly.com, and a preview of what you'll hear next week too. Signing off till then, thanks for listening.